Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're here live. All right, let me continue getting to the news. Eugenics, and I'm going to get into more of the scientific angles of it and their larger plans here in a moment, but eugenics is also about propagandizing the public to hate themselves, to think that the development is bad, private property is bad. Under eugenics, the family is bad because you owe allegiance to your family. You'll stand up for your family, not to the state. And we posted scores of textbook links and articles where they say the family's a disease, the family's got to be eradicated, all families are mentally ill. And you look at the communist Chinese model where they're basically eradicating the family. Here's just the last few days, without even looking, where they're demonizing the family. Does having children make you unhappy? This is out of the New York Times, and it says children are basically bad. When you read the article, it quotes the Journal of British Psychological Association saying the family is basically not good and is terrible. Now, I randomly just picked up an Atlantic Monthly last weekend. Half the magazine is global warming tax propaganda and world government tax propaganda. We covered that a few days ago. But on page 116, let's call the whole thing off. This author is ending her marriage. Isn't it time you did the same? And it says marriage is bad and sucks and family's bad. I mean, these people are sick. So they've always wanted to tear down family. They want to get you cornered by yourself so when they euthanize your butt, nobody's there to stand up for you. Okay? And then look. Half the pages. Here's an oil company supporting global greenhouse taxes, Dutch Royal Shell. And it's literally half the magazine. It is just unspeakable propaganda. And then they've got an article in here about how they want to chemtrail the public. And who is proposing that? Obama's climate czar is taking his orders from Mr. Holdren, John P. Holdren, the guy calling for the eugenics. And by the way, people say, oh, well, he wrote that textbook a long time ago calling for exterminating the majority of the population and sterilizing everybody. He wrote that a long time ago. Here he is in a mainstream news interview with displaying the book in his office proudly, Ecoscience, on the wall. Right there. There's the book. It's just so sick. And again, here's the Wall Street Journal saying terraform things. And who's the guy that says this? Him. Holdren. Holdren is now saying, oh, we're going to spray aluminum dioxide on you to manipulate the weather to save the earth. And then all these scientists go, wait a minute, that causes brain damage. And then, by the way, they've already been doing this program for decades. And then same article in here. It's just everywhere. We are swimming in it. Don't have kids. Don't have a family. Family's bad. Go out and party. Take drugs. Have a good time. Now, look at this article. This is out of Fox News. What does this have to do with eugenics? I'm going to explain it all to you in a moment. It is the key. Upcoming military robot could feed on dead bodies. Shouldn't the headline be vampire robot to power itself on human flesh? Intergenetically autonomous tactical robot, or the Eater. What a nice name, the Eater. Can make a nice horror movie called Eaters with the robots that feed off human flesh. That's Fox News. It's also in the Associated Press. What does that have to do with this little article out of the BBC? Foot and mouth vial went missing. Oh, that's a photo of thousands of dead cows burning in apocalyptic fashion with their legs sticking up in the flames, smoking. What does that have to do with the headlines today about how they're preparing for forced inoculations of the American people and the British people? And this doesn't mean they'll get away with it, but they're on ABC News, Fox, CNN, we've played the clips, saying forced compulsory injections are coming. Does all this tie together with eugenics? Well, I was reading to you Holdren Obama science advisor called for planetary regime to enforce totalitarian population control measures. Babies who are born out of wedlock or teenage mothers to be forcibly taken away from their mother by the government and put it up for adoption. Another purported measure would force single mothers to demonstrate to the government that they can care for their child, effectively introducing licensing to have children. He calls for licensing of children actually in here. And they talk about hunting down. Of course, they're already hunting down Christian families and grabbing their kids at homeschool. Implement a system of involuntary birth control where both men and women would be mandated to have an infertility device implanted in their body. Permanently sterilizing people who the authorities deemed who have been to had too many children. Formally passing a law that criminalizes having more than 2 children, similar to the one-child policy in communist China. They already demonize on the news families that have more than 1 kid. In fact, I have the newscast on Fox News saying having more than 1 kid's bad for the earth. Shouldn't do it. In fact, Google for folks on screen right now. Having more than 1 child, bad for Earth. Or babies have bad carbon footprint. Or tax children for carbon footprint. This is a tax on human activity, on the 2.5 pounds of CO2 you put off a day that plants breathe. See, they're not putting a tax on cross-species genetic engineering that's very dangerous to the environment. They're not putting taxes on toxic waste being dumped in the ocean. They're not putting, no. This is a tax on what you exhale, brother. And their own government documents call it a tax on breathing to end the industrial system. There'll only be technology in government, technological reservations of highly advanced technology we won't even have access to, including life extension. There's the Times of London. Having large families is an eco-crime. Here, let's show people another one. Great job, guys. Print this one. Environment chief, British environment chief says reduce British population to 30 million. He wants it forcibly cut in half, and that means euthanasia, sterilization, and they've done university studies. Watson wrote about it. Obama science advisor plan to sterilize population. The water supply already happening. They're already adding it to the water. Well water that cities pump out magically ends up with these chemicals in it. They're adding it. This is confirmed. It's happening right here in Austin as well. Now, I have the same headline out of Canada, the same headline out of Australia, and the same headline out of the U.S. Environment chief says we have to cut the U.S. population by half. Environment minister in Australia says we got to cut Australian population in half. New Zealand, environment minister says they've got to cut the population in half. The same week, every environment minister from Cairo, Egypt, to England, to Scotland, to Ireland, to Canada, and the U.S., every major nation under IMF World Bank control came out with the headline you see. UK population must fall to 30 million, says environment chief. One of Gordon Brown's leading green advisors is to warn Britain must drastically reduce its population. See, to build a sustainable society from 60 million to 30 million. Now, already with the government programming, the British population is dropping by near half. The indigenous Britons have a 1.1 population replacement rate. England overall has a 1.4. For every mommy and daddy, they have 1.4 kids. And that's counting the hundreds of thousands of legal and illegal aliens brought in yearly that are now counted as domestic births. England is now approaching total collapse. Do you know what happens when you only start having 1 child for every parent? Within a generation, your population's cut in half, and then it's almost impossible to start breeding back to the last levels. The eugenicist Nazis are actually targeting Anglo-Saxons and Germanic tribes, and also Jews. They always pay to kill Jews for some reason. The U.S. paid Israel to radiate 110,000 Sephardic Jews, the brown Jews. So you have to understand, this eugenic society is Jews involved, Nazis involved, the Chinese publicly signed treaties to carry out the one-child policy under State Department Memorandum 200 to get the IMF World Bank money. India signed deals. Oh, you don't believe me? Just Google this for them then. Do Peru or India sign deal with IMF World Bank to reduce population? Or India signed deal to reduce population. And you can read the headlines going back 30 years. And they just grab women off the street and say, we're sterilizing you. We got to get that cash. And the politicians get to keep some of that cash themselves for hard cash, for nothing but paper printed up by the New World Order out of nothing. Those people will sell their own soul. Oh, but again, we shouldn't be talking about all this here. We should be talking about Michael Jackson. Now, that's important. See, folks,